Hey guys, so we got a bit of a different video today. Back in March of this year, I reacted to a video by 3C Films, I believe that's his name, basically reviewing Scream 7 and my feelings about that movie. We're doing something a little similar to this video, only this time I'm not reacting to any video, we're just gonna talk about the finale of The Boys, mainly Season 5 as a whole, and whether or not it does a good job putting a bouquet on the entire series. I think enough time has passed, the dust has settled, and with all my thoughts gathered on Season 5 of The Boys, I think now is a perfect time to talk about how I feel about the season overall. It also goes without saying, but this video will contain massive spoilers for Season 5 of The Boys, so if you haven't caught up yet and you are planning on catching up with The Boys, I suggest clicking off this video right now. I'll give you 3 seconds before we begin. I guess I'll start with what's good about Season 5 before we get into what's not good about it. First off, the actors and their performances, despite some of their flaws that this season had, always knock it out of the park. Anthony Starr as Homelander, Carl Urban as Billy Butcher, who is my favorite character in the entire show, Jack Quaid as Huey, and everyone else, there's probably several others that I'm not thinking off the top of my head. They all did such a phenomenal job acting. Seeing a lot of their chemistry and performances is always a pleasure to see, regardless of which season of The Boys I'm watching. Another thing I liked about this season is how Homelander's evil does show in very subtle ways. Now, is he as threatening as he was in previous seasons? No, and we'll talk more about that, but seeing Homelander slowly kill each of his team members on the Seven is something that I also enjoyed because it shows that no matter how much you try to ass-kiss him and do good for him, he will eventually betray you when you no longer serve his needs. It really goes to show how corrupt and how truly evil Homelander is, because not even his own team members on the Seven are good enough for him. Frenchie's death also really crushed me. He's been there since the very beginning, and that whole arc with Kimiko was handled very well, with losing Frenchie, and the way that she gets the final blow on Homelander, well, not really final blow, but that she's the one that takes away his power is very poetic at the very end. And speaking of which, the best part of the season, objectively, was Homelander's final moments with Billy Butcher. This way that Homelander dies is so poetic, fitting, humiliating, and genuinely is satisfying to watch after all the horrors and terror he inflicted on other people. Seeing him finally get what he deserves and the shit beaten out of him with no powers really shows Homelander's true colors. It's also hilarious seeing a bunch of people on Twitter get triggered at this ending, but again, we'll talk about that later. Despite all the flaws of this season, I'm genuinely surprised that they managed to put together a fairly solid ending for the show all in all. That's about as much positivity as I can give Season 5. Unfortunately, getting to this ending, man, are there problems with this season. Season 5 of The Boys is easily the weakest season in the entire show. And that really sucks to say because it feels like this was the season that every other season was supposed to build up to. A huge thing I was really not a fan of in this season was the excessive amounts of filler content. You can get away with having some filler content in the earlier seasons, I can be more charitable then, but every story beat has to count for your final season. You cannot afford to do episodes where it shifts perspectives from different characters and not have the story progress forward in any meaningful way amongst that time. Or you send the crew out on a bunch of wild goose chases that just serve as an excuse to make the season artificially longer. Also, am I the only one that thinks that this season had a lower budget than the previous seasons? I know that's probably not true. This season probably had a decent budget put into it. But man, it really feels like a lot more happens in the previous seasons than this season. Which, again, if you're trying to wrap up storylines, you shouldn't be adding so much filler content in Season 5. It really is a shame. I had a lot of expectations going into Season 5, especially considering Season 4 sets up a lot of plot lines. Homelander becomes powerful by controlling the United States government, for fuck's sake. I mean, he's supposed to have access to the US Army, possibly make his own army of soups, just gain absolute power, and it really doesn't feel like Homelander uses it to the best of his ability. Oftentimes, he's just very passive, and he doesn't really feel like he's as much of a threat as he should have been this season. I'm talking he goes scorched earth and completely off the rails. He's burning cities. He's lasering civilians. He should feel like a hopeless apocalyptic threat against the world. That's what The Boys was alluding the worst possible scenario would be with him. But instead, it just feels like we got a lot of the same old that we've already seen previously. I mean, like, look me in the eyes and tell me that Homelander felt like he was a threat controlling the United States government and possibly the world as a whole. Did it really feel that way from start to finish? It really doesn't feel that way, despite the fact that they were teasing that it was going to go in that direction. Hell, even some of the marketing teases a lot of this stuff. You have Homelander floating up in space, looking down on the entire world as if it's beneath him. This marketing is fire. It's just a shame that the show never really pans out that way. Instead, the show decides to take the route where Homelander tries to convert citizens into praising him to feed his delusions of being a god. And while that's not necessarily a terrible or unfitting route to take, as Homelander is a character that feeds off of validation from other people, it just feels like they missed the opportunity to create a story where people discover that Homelander isn't this Superman that Vought tried to make him out to be, and eventually that is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Homelander going scorched earth on different cities in the US. They also had another opportunity for Homelander to go scorched earth. In fact, they could have used the example I'm about to say as the catalyst for him doing so, is the Flight 37 footage. The very first episode of Season 5 starts with Flight 37 footage leaking. Yeah, you remember this story thread that was set up in Season 1, where they use it as blackmail against Homelander to keep him in check, and then Homelander basically threatened Starlight by saying that if the footage got released, he would destroy cities, and then he'd have nothing left to lose? Yeah, that footage no longer matters. Basically, it gets revealed in the first episode of Season 5, and then Homelander goes, oh, it's just AI generated by a bunch of Starlight fans. So, none of that really mattered. All the teasing of the footage to get released for Homelander to go scorched earth, and then basically civilians not actually seeing him bad and then actually believing the bullshit that it was AI generated, it really had no ramifications on the story whatsoever, and that really feels like a slap in the face to everything that Season 1 was setting up. There's this whole other V1 plot line where basically the virus story that they set up in Season 4 sort of continues, where they continue to try to make a soup-killing virus that wipes out tons of soups. It doesn't work on Soldier Boy because he was one of the earlier superheroes that had V1 injected into him, which basically makes all subjects that take it immortal to everything. This causes Homelander to discover it, and eventually in either episode 6 or 7, haha, he takes that V1 and basically it's supposed to be game over at that point. But this plot also doesn't really matter. In fact, some could argue that the V1 actually makes Homelander weaker, because when he lasers Kimiko in the final fight, she doesn't even get split in half. She would have before, but not this time with the V1 injection. This is probably a plotline they're going to address in the future spin-off show that they're doing, Vought Rising. Not sure how good it'll be, only time will tell, but considering Gen V got cancelled after Season 2, I don't have high hopes. Speaking of the Gen V cast, I also feel like they were kind of pointless in the season. I'm not going to pretend like I watched the show because I didn't, so maybe someone in the comment section can push back on this point and maybe there's something that I'm missing. But like, what was the point of tying them into the show if they weren't going to do anything? Like, genuinely, what was the point of having them? Just to say, oh look, we're in the same universe. We exist. And then what? Nothing. I'm starting to notice a pattern as I say these things. Everything feels pointless. That is, until we get to the very end. The final fight between Butcher, Homelander, Kimiko, and Ryan felt like a fight we would have had earlier in the show, like around Season 2 or 3. It's by no means a bad fight scene, and Ryan and Butcher are definitely fitting. It's nice to see them team up against Homelander, but it doesn't really feel like a final fight. It just feels like a fight scene we would have had in like Season 2 or 3. Take the Season 3 fight scene between Homelander, Soldier Boy, and Butcher, for instance. That is a fight scene that is incredibly satisfying to watch. It's, in my opinion, one of the best fight scenes in the entire show. You really felt the adrenaline from start to finish. Those are the kind of fight scenes we should be seeing in Season 5. Again, once Homelander actually loses his power, the way he dies was executed perfectly, and I mean perfectly. But getting to that point is just so rocky. I really do mean it when I say that the way Butcher kills Homelander could not have been done more perfectly. The dialogue, the pain Homelander finally feels, it is a fitting ending for him. He dies as the man-child he truly is, and it's really satisfying. I saw a lot of Twitter get really upset at this, saying, oh my god, Homelander lost aura, he's powerless, he's not who he was in Season 1, this writing sucks. And what I have to say to those people is, yeah, that's the point. Ever since the beginning of the show, they have always teased the idea that Homelander is a man-child, and that he was given the ultimate power. If you are upset at Homelander quote-unquote losing aura, that is a massive self-report. You basically fell for the propaganda that Homelander fooled every citizen with in the entire show. This was objectively one of the few good parts of this season, so to see tons of people get angry at this part is just kind of hilarious. It really is a self-report. Another controversial part, to my surprise, was Butcher's ending. I don't think it's a secret that Butcher was going to die at the end. I expected that as a huge William Butcher fan. He's my favorite character in the entire show. He really is this universe's version of the Punisher, a balance between good and evil. And when we saw that Stan Edgar became CEO of Vought, and that Ryan didn't want to be part of his life anymore, and that Terror died, those were the last few things that Butcher loved that really sent him over the edge to continue his mission. You know damn well Butcher wasn't just gonna let the soup slide. And it was only a matter of time before we got another Homelander flying around. And so Butcher was like, yeah, we're not done here. There's still going to be soups around, and my mission is not over. A lot of people were upset at this part, but I think it's another part of Season 5 that was done very well. Huey is the one that is forced to kill Butcher before he releases the soup virus, but there's a moment of hesitation because Butcher sees his younger brother in Huey, and he doesn't deliver the final blow. He also says his final lines to make Huey not live with the guilt of killing him, which is a beautiful redemption arc for someone like Butcher. His ending, in my personal opinion, was much better in the show than in the comics. I'm really surprised people had a problem with this ending. I thought it was another one of the very few good parts of Season 5. Really, Butcher is the other side of the same coin when it comes to Homelander. Albeit Butcher is not as evil as Homelander is, but Butcher is not exactly the hero of this story either if he's going to release a soup-killing virus that kills tons of soups. And don't get me wrong, like, there's tons of soups that do a lot of bad things in The Boys, but not every soup in this show is bad. I mean, Starlight, Kimiko, there's probably a few others that are actually really good. So really, again, I think Butcher's ending was super fitting. In conclusion, Season 5 is rocky, to say the least. It is very rocky from start to finish. The ending was really the only good part of Season 5, and quite frankly, I would have kept a lot of the ending in the final result. Just getting to that point was the part that I would have changed. I would have done the Scorched Earth route. I would have made, like, Homelander an actual world-ending threat. Like, we really needed a turbulent Season 5. Like, an actual turbulent, like, oh shit, we really are in the end game now, basically. Not like Avengers Endgame, that's not what I'm referring to, but like we are in the end game of The Boys, basically, is what I'm saying. Unfortunately, it really just doesn't pan out that way. There's a lot of storylines that I just didn't particularly care about in the season. The budget, even though I don't think this show suffered a budgeting problem, I really think it's a writing problem more than anything. It felt like the budget of this season all went into the final episode, and we didn't see as much of a high budget as we did for, like, Season 1 or Season 2 even. That may not be true from a factual standpoint, but that's exactly what it felt like to watch the show in this season. But at the end of the day, those are just my thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comments section below. This is a different video than most of you guys are used to. I know we'll be back with our regular drama slot reacts eventually, but I felt like doing this today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.